Okay, we're going to do a tutorial on machining the full auto original Uzi bolt, SMG bolt, whatever you want to call it, into a semi-auto closed bolt system. Now that's a full size, this is a mini bolt. Okay, this one's converted, ready to go. I'm going to show you using a drill press, a grinder, some calipers, and just a few measurements how to get this into this. You can see it's got a hole drilled for the firing pin. The full-size one will have a blocking bar cut out here, and some welding done at the front to change the sear feet. We're going to weld up right here and get it flush with this here. Then we're going to cut this side down for Stryker travel and clearance. We're going to drill a hole right here for a firing pin and Stryker, and we're going to cut out for blocking bar clearance. First, we're going to make some measurements and do some scribing on this so we know where to drill and where to cut. Before that's done, though, you have to take your extractor out. Get you a screwdriver or a punch and push that pin out, and then push what looks like a screw there all the way through. That's your extractor. You got to get those out of the way first. Got your extractor out and the retaining pin. You should have a smooth hole all the way through. Now, using the instructions found on the guild, the center of the firing pin hole is 1.002 from the top. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set our caliper up to 1.002 and lock it. And 1003, yeah, whatever. Go over to your bolt and scribe using your calipers. I wasn't able to press real hard. I had to put the phone down to scribe it. Okay, we're going to measure, try to find the center of this thing. From here to here, it's about 1.20. So we need to go to 0.6 and scribe again. 0.601, that's pretty close. It's not rocket science. Now, go up the sides here, just do a little scribe mark. Okay. Go over on this side and do the same thing. Now, you can just barely see those scribe marks there for center. That's going to be the center of your firing pin hole. We're going to start drilling that center drill after we hit it with a punch, and then we'll go to an 1/8 inch bit for the majority of the length, and we're going to drill to right about here, and then we're going to use an 093 bit to drill the rest of the way through. Okay, so let me get a punch set up. You can see that I've went ahead and center punched my hole. Now, before we go any further, we're going to go ahead and drill this before we do any other operations, simply because if you cut this slot first and it still has that pin, yeah, that constitutes building a machine gun. I'd also note that these have been annealed, because the original bolts are extremely hard. Makes it very difficult to drill. So let's go to the drill press. Go ahead and use our handy dandy center drill to set this thing up. Fast, anything like that. You just want to get a good starter hole. chucked up a 5/32 bit, chucked it up short so it doesn't wobble. Using very light pressure, slowly try and drill into this thing. We're getting there. Every so often you'll have to move that bit down a little bit more. If you can prevent it from walking early on, your chances of success are a lot higher. Okay? Re-index the drill bit. We're going to add a little more oil into the hole, and then we're going to go right back to it. Now, I push in until I feel resistance, and then I let off. You just want to take little pecks. If you can take 1,000th or 2 at a time, that's great. You're not in a race. You can see it's pulling these little chips out. Okay? That's what you want. Slow and steady win the race and get you a straight firing pin hole. Okay? Now, every now and then, take your little brush, clean all the chips off that you can. Okay? And go back to taking little drill pecks. Don't let your bit get clogged up with chips, or otherwise it will start walking and it'll dull up the bit and all kinds of bad things happen. So far so good. Bit at a time. Peck and drill. Peck and drill. Add a little oil. A little more. Since we're using an 1/8" bit, I'm going to go ahead and bore all the way through. You can see how it's bringing up nice little chips every time. After all that work, we have a firing pin hole. Now, this one wasn't perfect as far as just bueno dead on center, but it is close enough that it will pierce a primer and not damage the firing pin by going off at weird angles. So, now, this cannot be an open bolt, a machine gun, a nothing, okay? This will be a closed bolt only now that it has no fixed firing pin. Next thing we're going to do is locate and drill a hole for your blocking bar slot. We're going to measure over 952 approximately from here. It's 0.352 over from center. Okay, so now we're going to scribe this. Now we're going to scribe 362 from the top of the bolt. Alright. You can kind of see we got our cross scratches there using a cheap Harbor Freight caliper. Now we're going to take our center punch this mark. We're going to drill a starter hole here for the blocking bar slot using a Cobalt 3/16 drill bit. Now on this one, you don't have to worry about going slow or doing a whole lot of anything. Put a little oil in it here and there, clear the chips, mainly just drill your hole. The hole all the way through to the ejection slot. We're going to upsize to a 1/4" bit and drill all the way through. Real slow going with these bigger bits. Still got to clear your chips from time to time, even if you've already bored through. Chiseling away. Yeah, we're almost there. And there we go. Alright, now we have a 1/4 inch hole in it. Put your chips. Let your bit and your piece cool for a minute. We're going to upsize that hole to a 9/32 because our blocking bar is a 1/4 inch. We want to make sure we've got adequate clearance around the blocking bar. 9/32 bit set up. Put a little oil there. And then we're going to bore on through. We've got our hole completely bored through. You can see how it came out tangent. Perfect with the edge of that flat injection port. Now, it's always a good thing if you can get it that close, but if you're a little bit plus or minus, it really doesn't matter. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to take these same calipers. You can see these have been through hell. We're going to measure the top, from the top of the bolt to the top of that hole, from the top of the bolt to the bottom of the hole, and we're going to scribe that down the side as a guideline for our cutoff wheel. If you look very closely, you can see a scratch line there using the caliper right along in there, and then the top of the line is even with that ridge. Okay, this is kind of an arbitrary cut. You just got to cut out enough to get the blocking bar in, and we're going to cut it out with a cutoff wheel and a grinder because I'm really good with those. You can always use a Dremel to polish any surfaces left or clean it up with a little grinding stone. So let's go ahead and cut that. You can see we use our cutoff wheel and we just kind of connected the dots. Our blocking bar doesn't quite fit, so we're just going to get in there with a grinding wheel or a cutoff wheel and finish clearing it out until that blocking bar fits. Blocking bar fits, moves in and out. Now, you can clean that out with a Dremel if you got one. You could do that whole cut with a Dremel if you got one, or a milling machine or whatever. Just want to make sure this blocking bar will fit and slide relatively easily. You can clean it up, polish and stone, whatever. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It's just to clear that blocking bar. It's going to be welded into your receiver. Now, the next thing we need to do is make a cut for Stryker Clearance. Okay. Now, if you notice, this is a semi-auto mini bolt. Okay. You see how this wall is much lower than the other one on the bottom. The reason for that is because your Stryker rides there. Now, this is a pretty easy step to make. Okay. And I got it backwards. Okay. You're going to cut this wall even with the bottom right there. Okay. Now we're going to mark it with our caliper, and then we're going to clamp a piece of metal to it as a guide so we can use our cutoff wheel to get it right. Okay, we're going to go 5050, 5.050 from the rear of the bolt. Okay, and mark. We're going to come down 0.995 from the top surface. Okay. and just scribe that and mark that. Okay, going off the top of your bolt down with 995, plus or minus 5 thou apparently. You can see the scribe line starting here at the rear of the bolt, going forward, and then there's a cross line here. We're going to cut out this bottom piece from here to there. We want this to go away. We're going to use our rotary mill to do the operations. First, we're going to clamp a piece of metal along here to use as a guide for cutting that long piece. We clamped a long piece of metal on there. Okay. Now remember, we're going to be cutting all the way down to right around in here. Okay. So I recommend cutting this line first so you know how far in to go. Okay. So we're going to cut that with our cutoff wheel and our grinder. You can do it with a Dremel. If that's all you got, run what you brung. And then we'll move on to the next order of operations. We have cut that portion off. What you're left with is this here. And if you want to cut a little less than I did and then file it to fit, that's fine. It just needs to be even with that plane there that the original bolt had. Okay, and you may have to file it a little bit when you get your Stryker to get it nice and flat and perfect. You can't cut way too much off, because then your sear might slip and let it fire when you don't want it to. And that's bad. So best to take it off, you know, take less than 1/8 of an inch off, you know, leave a little bit there and then file it down or sand it down or whatever you want to do. It's just got to be that same dimension. Go back with your caliper when you're done and measure and make sure it's all the same. Okay? Almost done. Now, one of the most important things you got to do to make this thing work right is right here. You got that step where your feet are. That the sear normally would hold the bolt open by those feet. Take you a piece of copper, okay, and clamp it on the inside here so that you can just build up a bunch of weld on that surface until that's all flat. Enough, you can see that I've clamped. There's a flat area on the inside such that this will clamp on at an angle. Okay, I'm going to go over there and burn this in with the MIG or the TIG, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Then we're going to grind it flat, smooth it out, and that's about it. Okay, we just got through throwing some weld down on it. You can see how I went over what I needed just so we can grind it flush. Let's swap and do the other side. We've got the sear feet welded up. See, I laid a pretty big blob on there. It's flat with the inside, flat with the inside. Now we're going to get our rotary mill back out, knock those down even. Okay, and you can see there's a slight angle there. I'm going to knock them even with that, and then even with that top. Might be hard to see because my camera sucks, but it'll all be apparent in the end. Okay, and here we have the ground down welds. Kind of see that I just ground them to match the profile of the rest of the bolt body, and use me a flat disc to do all that work. And if they got a couple highs and lows, not a big deal as long as your sear doesn't catch it. If you put it in and your sear catches it, then you got a little more welding to do. The only other thing to do is right here, this catch. We're going to go ahead and grind that out, if nothing else to reduce weight. Another thing the semi-auto bolts have is a pocket cut here. It reduces weight and allows the shells to clear the bolt as it cycles. I'm not going to cover that. That can be done with a grinder, die grinder on your Dremel, whatever. If you got a mill, of course, you wouldn't be watching this tutorial anyway, but all you got to do is just remove, it's a 45, it's 45 in and then 45 across, that, or, well, 45 in like that. It's pretty arbitrary. You're trying to reduce a little bit of weight and let the shells clear. That's about it. So let's go ahead and grind that sear out, and this puppy's done. No, it ain't pretty and all that, but it beats spending $200 on a converted bolt.